Hello and welcome to Business Live. Coming up, former Finance Minister Seth Tetteh warns Ghana's economy is still vulnerable even after IMF review meeting.
It's good for the situation not to get worse. I think it's good for, Ghanaians in general. But we must also note that for some of the indicators, we are growing from a low point.
Energy strategist Dr. Issah Suman calls for the retooling of the country's fuel storage infrastructure to help the country enjoy a significant reduction of fuel prices.
If you're a country, you don't have a relatively high storage capacity. It is expensive, but it's very important. Why US are having this big advantage in terms of fuel prices, though fuel prices could be going up, is because of storage.
Also, business community intensifies pressure on the Electricity Company of Ghana to release a timetable in order to plan accordingly. Beverage producers join calls for load shedding timetable.
We are demanding that the government timeline has to measures put in place, and then the time that they envisage that this thing will be a thing of the past.
These and many more coming your way in the next 30 minutes with me, Emma Davis. Please stay. Welcome. Let's start with former Finance Minister Seth Tetteh as he urges government to proceed with caution in light of the depletion of the country's fiscal buffers. Tetteh noted that while Ghana's performance under the IMF bailout program has delivered to a modest economic boost, sustaining this progress is critical to maintaining a path of recovery. He spoke at a media dialogue on the state of the economy and the IMF program in Ghana.
It's good for the situation not to get worse. I think it's good for, Ghanaians in general. But we must also note that for some of the indicators, we are growing from a low point. And the way we have depleted, our resources, the way we've depleted buffers in particular, means that we remain vulnerable. And I think that the projections also covering the next 5 years, we've discussed it. And so, in as much as we should be welcoming positive changes as good for the economy, we should also be cautious, because 4 or 5 years is a long time, and the projection that we are being given, which may have taken a lot of assumptions into account, may bring some setbacks. Setbacks are always inevitable. You can't manage an economy, for 3 to 4 years straight without suffering 1 or 2 domestic or external setbacks, given the interrelations between countries and economies. The extras of the contract database, which is called budget reporting something, all these are now major requirements with a view to making it transparent, which helps boost, Ghana's image as far as, access to finance and the rest. If the financial sector both domestic and foreign, do not have access to these reports. They cannot evaluate us. And sometimes they just end up with general information which does not connote a positive, output for the outcome for the nation.
Energy strategist Dr. Issah Suman has stated that if Ghana wants to enjoy cheaper fuel, then government must be deliberate about revamping its refinery and retooling its fuel storage infrastructure. He believes until these two are addressed, it will be difficult for consumers to enjoy much of an affordable cost of fuel. His concerns follow a report by globalpetrolprices.com, which revealed that Ghana stands out as the 10th country with the lowest gasoline prices in Africa and 40th globally for April 2024. Speaking to Joy Business on the matter, Dr. Suman asked government to be deliberate about its investments in the energy sector.
We have some key structures of institutions or energy institutions in Ghana. If we could galvanize them, galvanize them like what is happening within the Middle East that I just talked about. Why they have relatively low fuel prices is just because they have a huge stock of the greenback and they don't depend so much on the greenback, and then their import bill is not that much. So what we can do, Africa and Ghana, we have to drastically improve our refining capacity locally. That's number one. Number two, and then we have the ability to do that. Fortunately, Dangote is coming online on stream, and I will just say that people should watch out for Nigeria. If Dangote stay on course, you will see the rippling effect within the African continent. Number two, we need to look at storage capacity. It's quite expensive, but that is what to go. That is way to go. That has also been one of the energy security bottlenecks. If you are in a country and you don't have a relatively high storage capacity, it is expensive, but it's very important. Why US is having this big advantage in terms of fuel prices, though fuel price could be going up, is because of storage. US has huge storage. Storage has been energy security measure that countries do adapt. I know it's very expensive. Fortunately, Ghana, we have the structures. BOST is there. That is an excellent starting point. We have to be able to retool that and make sure that all the depots work well, and we can intricately link them up within these depots with a robust pipeline. If we do that with storage capacity, with high refining ability, that would be huge pressure relief on the currency. And then finally, you will have to be able to, you just mentioned price stabilization levy. Most countries like those that I mentioned, they are able to link up the downstream and then the upstream. We have operated it segregated, and that has impacted us. When fuel prices are going up, we could have windfalls. I always call for the fact that we have to have a workable formula where we are able to channel the windfall from the upstream side when when petroleum crude oil prices are going up to the downstream. That we have to do. That is something that we cannot do without.
A little longer in the petroleum sector, as the managing director of Zen Petroleum, William Teye, has stated that the price floor mechanism set by the National Petroleum Authority must constantly be monitored to prevent it from being abused in the future. He is of the view that the interest of consumers must be paramount at all times when setting the price. The price floor was introduced by the NPA to prevent oil marketing companies from selling petroleum products below the stated price. Mr. Teye cautioned that the system could be open for abuse in the future.
The price floor is an interesting one, and there's different schools of thought on that. I think for us, we believe that it has to be a free market. You have to leave people to compete, because if I can sell fuel cheaper to you than what somebody has determined, then I should be able to do that and pass the value down to you. But to date, the price floor that has been set is quite low, and I think it's really taking into account the very, very basic cost of the product. So that is not an issue today. But I think the thing that we should be looking at going forward is that the price floor doesn't start creeping up to a point where the customer is losing out. So we shouldn't get to a point where an oil marketing company is able to sell to you at a lower price, but because there's a price floor, they're forced to increase their price. And I think that's something that we need to watch. But so far, with what has been coming out from the National Petroleum Authority, the price floor that's been set is quite a significantly low number. So it's not an issue today, but as I said, we need to watch it very closely going forward to make sure that the customers don't lose out.
Joining me via phone is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, Duncan Amoa. Thank you very much, Duncan, for joining us. Do you share in the concern that the way the policy is designed, it could be abused in the future and the consumer could be forced to pay more for petroleum products?
With the chairman of the Association Oil Marketing Companies Board, than what he has explicitly stated. You have a policy that is simply looking at protectionism as far as pricing within industry is concerned. In a deregulated market, one would expect to arrive at a certain point where market is simply efficient, and that for the inefficient OMCs, you may just run away after a point because people are simply concerned about how best or what best they get on the market and for what price. So when you see a regulator posturing that suggests that we cannot allow you to sell below a certain price threshold, even if your products have been in tank for a while and due to administrative reasons, you've not been to the market, then it's a source of worry for the consumer because you have an open market that could see somebody tomorrow landing products for far less than what your current market averages dictate. Unfortunately, what the NPA posturing is suggesting is that even if you got the product any cheaper, will not allow you to sell below a certain price threshold. And that, for us, defeats the entire essence of the deregulated program. And we think that just like the chairman has indicated, it could be a recipe for manipulation and a recipe for simply fleecing the entire Ghanaian consuming public.
Hence, would you say that more industry players are also worried?
I do think that the consumer would be a lot more worried than even the industry. But then again, if you also have an industry player who, for one reason or the other, decides to pay cash for products, and so it's almost all the time able to trade more efficiently on pricing, and then you are creating a policy that says that we are putting a minimum threshold below which you cannot trade, you are simply inconveniencing these traders who are deciding to trade more efficiently. And this is simply just going to work against the consumer. So we as a body have also decided that every single window, as soon as the NPA announces a floor, we would announce our ceiling because there have been also windows where you've seen some of the numbers clearly way higher and above what if you were doing normal margins of 50, 60 pesos a liter you should be charging. So if NPA is not interested in the ceiling, we would also decide to set the ceiling for them just to be able to correct that whole narrative that suggests that the NPA is seeking simply to make fuel prices just more expensive for the consumer who is looking for efficient prices.
Then I believe you think there is a way to prevent this from happening in the future, right?
Of course, if you want to, get your market to be legal or prim and proper, it is so easy to verify with your operators or petroleum service providers. What is your landing cost? What are your margins, markup? What are your operating margins? And be able to scrutinize those numbers. If you feel somebody is doing the wrong thing and you would need to crack a whip, you could safely do so. But to insist that the authority is going to set a price threshold below which nobody should trade, that for us defeats the entire deregulation program. And we would call on them to take a second look at that policy to ensure that we don't make the deregulation program unattractive for the consumer.
Right. Duncan, before I let you go, the month is almost over. Has COPEC conducted its forecast yet on the next pricing window of petroleum products?
What I can confirm is that per industry figures as of this evening, petrol prices, which is gasoline, could have done about 2.3% increases. You could have done about another 3% reduction for diesel or argo, whilst LPG could have gone down by some 3% equally. What we suspect will happen, especially in windows like this, is that there's something called cross-pricing where as many as will sell petrol will sell diesel. And so instead of going up here 2% and going down here 2%, prices will rather remain stable for the first window in May. There is unlikely to be adjustments, although international benchmarks dictate that petrol should go up, diesel should come down, LPG should come down. Prices are likely to remain stable at the pumps across the country.
Okay, Duncan, thank you very much for making time on Business Live. Duncan Amoa is Executive Secretary of COPEC. Moving on, the National Communications Authority says it has approved SpaceX Starlink GH Limited, the operator of Starlink satellite broadband, to provide satellite broadband services in Ghana. A statement issued by the NCA on Thursday, April 25, to announce the approval said the approval of the application follows the policy approval of the satellite licensing framework in Ghana by the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization. More in the following Business Desk report.
Our Communications Authority says it has approved SpaceX Starlink Ghana Limited, the operator of Starlink satellite broadband, to provide satellite broadband services in Ghana. In a statement issued by the NCA on Thursday, April 25, to announce the approval, it said the application follows the policy approval of the satellite licensing framework in Ghana by the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization. It also added that the administrative processes towards the issuance of the license is ongoing and will be completed shortly. The approval of Starlink satellite broadband is expected to contribute to the current mix of internet supply. Again, it's expected to be used as a backup in the case of unlikely fiber internet outages.
Joining me via Zoom to better appreciate what this means for Ghana is Chief Executive of the Ghana Telecoms Chamber, Engineer Dr. Ken Ashigbe. Dr. Ashigbe, thank you very much for your time. What does this mean for consumers? Dr. Ashigbe, can you kindly unmute for me?
Well, thank you very much. So it's important to know that this, maybe we should have been having this conversation a lot more with the regulator who issued the statement. But, speaking from the industry point of view, satellite communication would be one of the channels that would have to be used in providing internet. By far, fiber would continue to be the source of majority of internet connectivity that we have. But satellite would also complement it. And it's also important to note that before the Starlink conversation, there have been other satellite companies that have been operating in this country who have partners locally that they work with, the likes of Yaklik that works with Comsys, was a member of the chamber. I know there are other entities like MCOM High Speed. There is SES, for example, who's been working with KNet for multimedia, for example. There are times in the past where we've had internet, backup coming from satellite. So this is not new. It's not new. And so what it would mean for customers is that, especially those who are in the very hard to reach areas where laying your fiber would be difficult, you could have the satellite internet as your primary one. For other establishments that have mission critical infrastructure, they could decide that they would have that as part of the mix. I know that some of the telcos themselves are also considering adding up, and some of them even use satellites, either for backhauling purposes, or as part of their mix. So this really is going to add up to the plans that currently industry has. As you start getting improvement in satellites such that the latencies are reducing, and then you are also able to deal with the vagaries of the weather, you would increasingly be seeing satellites being introduced into the mix to complement rather than to supplement.
Does this mean internet connectivity would improve?
Well, you see, the thing about it is that as I'm speaking to you now, we're using satellites. I don't know, we're using internet. I don't know what means you're going to use, but once you bring that in, what it will do is that it will help the resilience. It would help the resilience of our connectivity, so that when you have a challenge here, you have other options that you're going to use. It would also help satellites coming into the mix would help us be able to reach some of the very difficult to reach areas using the other means of connectivity. So you will be able to bring that into it. And again, as I said, it will build on our resilience, so that it's not only just submarine fiber that you're using or terrestrial fiber that you're using, but you also have satellites in the mix.
What then do you make of the assertion that it should be mainly used as a sole backup critical information infrastructure?
Well, as I said, some entities would use it as their backups. But, you cannot determine in a very liberalized market, you cannot determine what people do, So once the NCA liberalizes it, you can walk, they then are regulated by the NCA. Just like the way you can walk into COMSIS's office, and if you want YACLIC, you would be able to get the service. But there are some entities where you take some of these mining companies that might be in very remote areas where maybe your fiber has not gotten there, and they want to start operation. They would be able to use this as their primary source. And then if you have an entity that is operating in such a way that it cannot afford to go down even 0.01%, it can decide that it would have this in the mix as a backup.
Thank you very much, Engineer Dr. Ken Ashigbe, for your time on Business Live. He is the CEO of the Ghana Telecoms Chamber. Moving on, the local beverage industry in Ghana is facing challenges of a depreciating cedi, high utility tariffs, and unstable power supply, which is threatening their operations. According to the Executive Secretary of the Food and Beverage Association of Ghana, Samuel Agri, the situation is exacerbated by the recent increases in fuel prices. Speaking to Joy Business at this year's Ghana Beverage Awards in Accra, Mr. Agri called for consistent government support to rescue local beverage manufacturers from imminent collapse.
This year's Beverage Awards was under the theme Inspiring Excellence in Ghana's Beverage Industry. About 21 beverage brands were recognized in the night. After a careful selection by a panel of judges, the sector has been hit hard with recent past challenges and increase in utilities across the country. Speaking to Joy Business, Executive Secretary of the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, Samuel Agri, warned that the current unfriendly business environment could force most of the businesses out of the country.
It's a gateway to Africa. We expected that most of the policies will be friendly. Our currency will be stable. The economic policies will also help the local industries for them to, as it were, grow their industries and then not to rather collapse the businesses that they do. So this is a call to government. We are doing our best, and we want the policies to be right. Taxation should be lower for local industries for them to be able to, as it were, thrive and expand their businesses. But as we see now, with the taxation system that we have, the power system that we have, and also the competition that is not helping our local industries, most of them are considering relocating to other West African countries or beyond. But we have a good, stable environment that we can really bring in these people. So if the environment is calling them to come in, then the policies must also be right for them to be able to stay here, expand their businesses, and give employment to our people or citizens in this country.
Chief Director at the Global Media Alliance, Emma Wenani, used the occasion to invite small-scale businesses in the beverage industry to take advantage of the award ceremony to increase their visibility and brand image.
I would like to see a lot more small and medium startups coming up. The guest of honor today encouraged a lot of patronizing of local beverages, and that's something that GBA has been championing year on year. And we want to see a lot of the upcoming brands coming up into GBA. It's an opportunity for them to create awareness for their products. It's an opportunity for them to learn from other companies that have gone before them. It's an opportunity for them to know about the best case practices to create visibility. So I'd really like to see a lot of the small scale companies coming on board. A lot of them over the years, when we've approached them, they always feel that GBA is for top international companies, and I'd like to change that and say that it's not. That's a wrong perception. We want to see all the companies being represented at GBA.
The award scheme serves as a dynamic platform for industry players and stakeholders.
That'll be all for Business Life. I am Emma Davis. For more business news, do log on to myjoyonline.com and be updated. And we have for you, have capacity to influence policy. Former media boards to engineers. Ghana retains 10th position with lowest price in Africa. Do visit the page and be updated. I am Emma Davis. See you same time tomorrow.